Jenny.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Georgetown Tea House. We've got another fun and insightful conversation for you this evening. If you're about to join us for the first time, please feel free. Come on, grab your cup of tea, grab your juice. If you're a regular, welcome back. And for those who will be joining the broadcast after, we also want to tell you a special good day, good night, good afternoon, and welcome aboard. This is the Georgetown Tea House, and we have our goodly brothers with us. We have Tyrone, Cleon, he just stepped back for a moment, and Randy. Good night, guys. What's going on?
Good night, good night. I'm good, man.
You're good. You're
Glad,
good. All right.
yeah, glad.
It's Christmas time, and that season where we like to decorate, and outside of giving thanks, of course, we decorate a lot, we cook a lot, and things. So I was just finding out from Cleon what's the price of oxtail down at this end because they're killing us over here. What was the price of oxtail by you there, Tyrone?
I think you might be asking the wrong person because I don't like shopping already, so I
You
don't
know,
basically I don't basically know the price of oxtail and so on, but I know that the Christmas season is around, and
Mhm.
just this afternoon I heard some nice Christmas carol being played. Getting into the mood and the spirit of Christmas and all the rest of it. But the price of oxtail,
Yeah,
I'll ch- I'll
you're not
I'll
the
check
shopping guy.
I'll check the supermarket tomorrow,
Hmm.
and next week I'll give you
You'll
a
be able to
price.
say.
Yes, I'll be
All
able to say
right,
what
all
price
right,
is
all
your
right,
oxtail.
good. How beef going on in GT there, Randy?
Well, I am
You're
not
gonna be able you're
sure.
gonna be able to make the pepper pot?
I am not sure, but everything in Guyana has been inflated since, and then the government now gave us 7%. So um, they, I mean, they are those who are selling the items, they
Mm-hmm.
suddenly just give themselves a price hike too. So I mean, you know,
Another
what I
seven
mean, it.
percent too, or at least
Yeah,
a six
yeah,
point
yeah.
five.
Yeah, yeah, they raised the price to match the increase. So,
Right, right.
but I'm not sure. But I'm sure it's going to be up. And as it gets closer to Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
um, things that are in demand for Christmas or where Christmas is usually enjoyed with um
Right, right.
is going to be up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is the Georgetown Tea House where we have, a lot of fun and insightful conversations. We talk about Christianity, we talk about morals, we talk about values, we talk about the everyday. And today, we want to look at some little conflicts that may arise, between our Christian values and dealing with the everyday. All right. So please grab your cup of tea, your glass of juice, your glass of swan, whatever is your choice. All right. Tell a friend, and we'll be back with you. Please do not forget to share the broadcast. This is the Georgetown Tea House.
Examine any profound event in the Bible or in the history of Christianity, and one is sure to recognize the consistently pivotal role of conversational interactions. We see this at play in Genesis, the first book, where through a series of conversations we witness the fall of our species and the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. The conversation between God and man, the conversation between man and woman, the conversation between the woman and the devil, and so on. At the Georgetown Tea House, we know the great importance and pivotal role that conversations often play in our lives on this earth. And thus, we will seek to engage in the types of conversations that are insightful, stimulating, and thought-provoking. and yes, occasionally a trifle boring. Our hope is that with each visit to the tea house, we can become better aware of who we are, of our relationship with God, and where we stand with each other and the rest of humankind. And yes, through it all, there will be music. For music, it had been written, is the food of love, and God is love. Join us every Monday evening on Facebook and YouTube Live for conversations at the Georgetown Tea House, a Gospel Side of Me production. Please, do bring along a cup of tea or a glass of your favorite juice.
All right, welcome back and good evening again. This is the Georgetown Tea House. My name is Anansi. Uh, on behalf of myself and Marcel, my co-host, we'd like to welcome you on board. With me, we have Cleon, Tyrone, and Randy, who briefly disappeared. All right. Randy, I'm going to tackle you first. We're looking at our values and sometimes how these values can come into conflict with everyday life. We'll start with a very simple situation, Randy. In Christianity, uh, you know, generosity is a virtue and unselfishness is a virtue. Can you recall a time, Randy, when this stew pot had three pieces of beef left and six people to eat? As to what were your thoughts as to whether you should take an extra piece of beef or leave all the beef for the people? What went through your mind, Randy?
uh, I'm trying to recall probably when I was much younger and I'm growing up with my cousin, I would have done something wicked enough to take 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 the three pieces of meat and left them without. I mean, I grew up with four boys, so we used to do things like that. You know what I mean? But at this stage now, I'm more decent. Let's put it away.
Mhm.
So but yeah, when much younger, I would have done something like that. Definitely, I remember
You
not
never found yourself feeling guilty about it or anything?
no, to us was wickedness. To us was fun. Um,
Okay.
back then, if I should step aside from your scenario and give you a scenario, remember my cousin did something wrong. I think he interfered with his father. Something important for his dad, and he said, and
Hmm.
they were warned not to trouble about, not to interfere with it. And
Right,
so
right.
we held that over his head. And so sometime I remember when we sit around the table and we eating, and if the guy has a nice piece of beef or chicken in his plate, we demanded it, or else we're gonna, tell the father, I can tell Uncle Leslie if you don't give me a piece of the chicken or something, you know
So,
what I
so,
mean?
so you
So
practice blackmail at that age?
yes, yes. Un- Until we got caught because we were around the table, and and my cousin had a nice piece of fish and we wanted it, and somehow that day he was not going to give it up. And
Mhm.
so I was like, I'm going to tell Uncle Leslie. And Uncle Leslie was inside, and not realizing that he could have hear us, he was like,
Mhm.
"Tell me what?" And so the whole secret had to come out, and the blackmail was over. So I mean, it was good while it lasted, but it was pure
Right, right.
wickedness.
I got you. So Tyrone, how's that predicament to you? Here you are, a good Christian young man. You like your little chicken or whatever, and three piece of beef in the pot, six people to eat. What do you do?
I mean,
How generous and unselfish can you be?
there's a difference between being a Christian and being converted. So in the state when you're not converted, then you seek to satisfy yourself. But
Mhm.
we never had that situation simply because of the way that my mother and my elder siblings distributed the food.
Okay.
So we never went into the pot to take out our own food. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Whenever they finish cooking, they line up the plates on the countertop or the tabletop,
Right.
and they distributed the food evenly.
Okay.
Finish. And when
Interesting.
they finish, that's when they call us. But if they were to just allow us to go in the pot, I think that would have been. I'm not. I don't think I would have been the converted Christian at that time and think about anybody else. But I would have just, you know what? Yeah. But we were taught to share among ourselves and to share with others.
Right.
Even the little that we
Okay.
have, we are taught,
Right. Right.
just share. Everybody must eat a little, as they say, eat a little and live long, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Cleon, how did your household handle that scenario?
Um, well, I grew up with my granny, so it was mandatory that if people come, you'll have to make room for them. And I don't know how they actually made it possible that everybody actually got to eat from
Mm-hmm.
that which you would have perceived as not going to be possible. So I guess that is one thing that I have seen faith in its existence from then, even though I
Okay.
didn't know what faith was
Right.
before. Um, and I have lived with it throughout my life. And I still do practice it that if somebody comes to my house, I am going to find something for them to eat. I'm going to make way out of what I am having to make certain that they get something to eat. The only way they wouldn't get anything is if they don't want it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's very much a part, especially country life. Growing up, you know, you would expect that somebody's gonna turn up at any time. All right, and so there's always food. But I think as times got a little more difficult, that that kind of practice kind of grew a little more difficult to extend that kind of thing. All right, you with the Georgetown Tea House, and we are looking at little issues that pop up that may come into conflict with our Christian values. Now, Cleon, a young child, you may have known of such a person, where the child is well behaved, the child does well at school, but the child passionately hates church. How, as a Christian father, how do you address that child? How do you deal with such a situation?
Oh, Lord of mercy, Jesus, no, sir. This is a real planker situation. Well, child is doing well at school and all of these things, but they hate church. My question will be to my child, what about church that you hate? Because there has to be some reason, while there may be a demonic influence, it might be some spirit that I need to cast out of you in Jesus' name. Maybe the issue, the first step for me would be to have the civil conversation with you. You're doing well in school. You are well behaved. I have no issues with you. You're doing everything. But what about church that you don't like? And based on the answers, we'll be able to move forward from there. But it wouldn't be the first intent to say, oh, you have to go because
Mhm.
I'm a Christian. Because I've seen persons who bully their children to go to a fellowship, which is not the church, and they have lost them when they should have introduced them to Jesus firstly, and not the gathering of the people who come, and I dare say allegedly, in the name of Jesus.
No, but that's an interesting point with regard to introducing them to the faith itself and Jesus as against the congregation. What's your take on that, Tyrone? How would you handle such a child?
That's one word for me: relevance.
Mhm.
Maybe school is more relevant to the child than the church is. And in these times that we live, as a teacher, I've observed that students are more into what makes sense to them.
Mhm.
As a mathematics teacher, one of the first thing they ask you, when are we going to use algebra in real life? If they don't understand it, most likely they would not enjoy it. And so for that child, through observation, it could have been that the church has become, or the church is not relevant in meeting the child,
Mhm.
or in creating the interest in the church activities. And I agree with Cleon in terms of, and I think that's the mistake that the church has made over the years. We introduce people to denomination
Mhm.
and not Christ. And so we dress them in the robe of denominations without first allowing them to enjoy the benefits of being in a relationship with Christ. And so for me, for that child, if it's my child, I will sit and have a conversation to seek understanding as to why they hate church with such a passion. It could be they hate the people that go to church. It could be the program is boring. It could be their needs are not met. And it could be also that they need to change location. They might need to
Mhm.
change congregation. But the bottom line for me is, unless the child sees importance and relevance and relatable issues within the Christian faith in Christ,
Mhm.
it is only a matter of time before they will hate church.
Okay. Thank you for that, Tyrone. Randy, your take as a father, your child generally well behaved, does well in school, basically a child that you're proud of, but they hate church with a passion. How as a father do you deal with that? And as a teacher.
Um, I agree to an extent with what Cleon and Tyrone would have said. First of all, there must be a reason the child why the child doesn't like church. All right. My own kids right now, um, when we go to church, if the service is too long, they have to sit there and all of these things. You'll find them saying, "Daddy, when we going home? When church over? When church over?" And most persons find that part kind of, as children at least, that part kind of boring. What we can do, or what I would do as a parent, is just in the church has lots of activities, lots of clubs and youth groups and all of these things. Get them involved, all right. And when they can get involved, going to camps, I think seeing the fun side of church, so to speak, from a child's perspective. All right. My children will go into Sabbath school. They will sit and they will interact with their peers. They will do things that they will do at their classes and all of these things. And they will have fun. But from the time they come out of that and come into the big people session, it's boring to them. All right. And I think that's some of the problems that most kids will have. And I will say that we need to introduce them to the child friendly part of church, the more fun things. I recall when I was much younger, well, I grew up in a church with my grandmother. So and for a while I stopped going to church. And I remember my cousin Kim, I think she's on the line, she would have mentioned something. Um I can remember I was preparing for this big party in Buxton, and it was an Easter holiday. And she invited me to go to Camp Goshen. She invited me way early, and I said to her, yes, just to brush her off and to get her off. But I already had my outfit and everything for this party. And when it came close to the camp, she said, I'm
That
Randy,
was
we
at
going to
Jarvis
camp.
Place.
Um, you know the spot, Cleon. Yes, so and she said, Randy, we still going to camp. So I said, man, no, because I forgot I gave my commitment way back because I just wanted to brush her off. So I said, no. She said, man, I already paid. I said, all right, I can go. And the camp was 2 weeks at Camp Goshen, and I had the time of my life, and I went to see the fun part of because we went up there. I interacted with the young people. We had rap sessions, a lot of spiritual upliftment, and I never looked back from them. You know what I mean? I saw the real fun side of church and what church has to offer and being introduced to Christ and all of these things. And I said to myself back then, imagine I was giving up 2 weeks of fun for one night of party, you know?
Right, right,
So,
right.
I mean, I will try to get them involved in church activities, that groups like the young people and so on. Right now at my church, the young girls started up a group called GEMS, Girls of Excellence and Moral Standards. And young girls from whatever age to 25, and they're doing their own thing, and you're finding and you find the young people now are logging on to it and so on. You know what I mean? So church
Mm,
now becomes a part of them. So
right.
right, and we find young people now, women, young people, and so you're finding them in church instead of being elsewhere on the street. So I can only um deploy and employ those same strategies, I guess. So
Okay.
get my child who doesn't like church to actually like church. So
Okay.
yeah, that's my
Thank you
take
for
on
that.
it.
Thank you for that, Randy. Tyrone, Malika is saying, I remember as a child having to be in church Sunday morning until Sunday afternoon, then back for Sunday night service, then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday night. Um, you might agree that that is a little too much church for a child, right?
Church, going to church doesn't make you a Christian. Let me just make
Mm,
that point straight up. And here's the thing. Yes, that can seem very overwhelming to a child. What time between that does the child have for play, for socializing with other peers, for doing other stuff and so on? And so after a while, the child can be burnt out.
mm,
They suffer from church burnout, so to speak. And as I was doing some research, one of the things that I found out is that one of the reasons why children hate church is because there is very little time for themselves, very little time for them to be basically children. So they go to school, they come home, they do homework, they do schoolwork, and the parents give them extra labor chores to do at home, and so they're always on the go round the clock. So when it comes to whether Saturday morning or Sunday morning now, they're so tired that they cannot find the
mm.
energy now to basically to go to church. And
Right.
so yes, there needs to be a balance, and Christ spoke about that balance that we need to have in our lives. He made us four-dimensional being: mental, physical, spiritual, social. And so if we have that one side or lopsided kind of thing towards our holistic development, then after a while it will have that negative impact. And before you know it, the child may just wait until certain age, say, you know what, I'm on my own now, so I'm not going to do that again.
Okay. All right. Cleon, Samantha is suggesting that it could be they have seen the two-sided substandard principles we display. What's your take on that?
I do agree with that premise. That is one of the premise that is facts out there, or that it's factual. Um, on the basis of where there's a double standard with the parents or guardian of the infant or the child, then that person needs to take responsibility for being the one who is hindering the progress of that individual. In the instance where there is no double standard, but the child just does not want to go, you still have to have a conversation with the individual, asking them, what about the church you do not like? And again, I will say, lots of Caribbean people don't really like to have conversation with their children because they believe culture says, I am the head, whatever I say goes. Failing to recognize that these same individuals have a mind of their own, who were also given free choice to listen or to disobey you as the parent, but we pass on some things that are culturally um, not applicable to one's development. And therefore, I would continue to say that it is imperative that persons start having conversation with their children. What about the adult part of the service is boring? And why would you say it is boring? What is boring for you? What do you consider? And that is how you get to engage people in meaningful conversation. Not just say, well, because it's church, you have to like church, or you must have a demon, that's why I don't like church. Church probably don't have no demon or anything spiritual to say that you need to pray out or pray against, but it's just that the atmosphere is not conducive for their level of cognitive reasoning. So they will not be able to be engaged. And Nancy, you're mute.
Sorry about that. You're at the Georgetown Tea House. Please remember to like and share the broadcast. We're looking at, Christian values and everyday predicaments. No, we're still on with children, and this is something that some people do have to deal with. Randy, you may know of the the child from a Christian household who, for varying reasons, do not like to hang out with the brothers and sisters of the church, or quote unquote the good company, as their parents might say. They there with the supposed fourth wall is cussing the bad boy and thing. Um, how do you address a child in such an instance? They prefer to hang with the bad crowd. For whatever reason, they find that crowd interesting, and not the quote unquote good people.
Um, First of all, something must be appealing to the child on that side. All right. Sometimes we can make Christianity um, boring, and so we tend to lose the young people. We just show them this stringent way and whatever, and we make Christ and Christianity and everything boring. So we tend to lose young people like that. The point raised earlier in terms of double standards. Um, when a young person meets to a certain stage of self actualization, when they can reason for themselves and they can look at things and decipher things and look at it differently and pick out, the double standard is one that will cause them not to be among the supposedly good Christian, because sometimes those supposedly good Christians are the one who portraying the double standards, not necessarily from the home. Things have changed back then, because in the home where I grew up, um, we hadn't a choice. So whether or not you want to go to church, it was we had to go to church. My grandmother was strict like that. All right. So for me, I said, look, I mean, I embraced it. I enjoyed it. I am being a part of the program and so on. So, but things have changed now. Now these days, um, a lot of homes or a lot of stuff of being relaxed, so to speak. And so children from a tender age are deciding what they want and how they want to do it. Not in my home, because I roll with the old time rules. So if I'm going to church, my kids are going to church too. You understand? I'm also exposing them to other things outside, but I'm letting them know that this is important, and I'm trying to condition them and to teach them the values of being good and serving God and all of these things. All right.
Right,
But
right.
if I have a child who likes the bad side, like I said, like Cleon would have said, we have to have conversations about it. Um, and we can talk. This is the age where we need to have conversation with our children. We need to talk about them because they're exposed to so many things now, and they're forming these solutions and they're making decisions on their own. So we have to
Mhm.
be critically involved in their lives now more than ever before. You understand me? And like I said, we really need to identify with them, talk with them, and able to pilot them in a right like in the right direction. Growing up, I had all sorts of friends. My grandmother used to allow me to go and play football, and I used to get to and go and play football when she didn't allow me. I had friends who would smoke and drink and all these things, but I never did because she would have instilled these things within me from a tender age. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, so even though part of that side was appealing to me, going out and hanging out with them and so on, I never started coursing and drinking and smoking, and to this day I don't do it. You know what I mean? But what I've learned now and being a teacher and being a parent, um, I engage a lot in conversation with my kids, the students who are under my span of control at school. I will talk with the boys. We will have discussions about various subjects and all of these things. I will share from my experience. I will try to impart knowledge within them and try to point them in a certain direction.
Mhm.
My kids are 6 and 8, and at this age, the amount of things that will come out of the mouth, the level of things. I mean, I have to have this conversation with them. So
Right, right.
so I can only go down that route in terms of trying to identify with them, see how they're thinking, and try to pilot them in the right way, show them the pros and cons, and trust God for them to make the right decision.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Randy. Uh, Cleon, Randy just brought up the point that we live in a time where kids are often, there's a whole lot of information out there and they're exposed to it. And some of the tricks that adults may have had back in the old days wouldn't necessarily work now, So let's take the situation of a single parent mom, and you know, Mr. Stanislaus has been visiting the home, and he's been introduced maybe as an insurance agent or the sort. But then the teenage child in the home realizes that wait, no, Mr. Stanislaus is actually mom's boyfriend. Um, should 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 a child in that position, because mom hasn't come forth, mom isn't saying telling the truth as to what's really going on. Should that child get involved? How should a child deal with a situation if they know, hey, mom is actually having an affair.
I'll see it in this way. If the child and the parent has that meaningful relationship, then I do agree that the child should engage the parent in saying, while you may be the only person that is um, taking care of me, I appreciate all that you're doing, but I'm reminding you that the one who has been faithful in seeing us not be forsaken and begging bread is able to provide for us. And with the understanding that I know times can be hard and it has been hard, but putting yourself in this position is hard for me to look at and hard for me to not say that I'm seeing this. That would be a child who is of the level of maturity that they can be able to have that conversation with the parent. And if the child is of that level, I think there is absolutely no wrong in them saying that, because they are saving the parent additional trauma that they think they are going to be gaining because somebody else is coming. Because the Bible already said, don't let the good that you do become evilly spoken of, because you don't want people to be throwing assertions and say, oh, your mother and the insurance man and your mother is a Christian and all of these things. So the child who is mature enough to have the conversation should have that conversation with the parent, and it should not be deemed as, oh, you're meddling in my business. Because remember, you are my parent, who we live together, and if you're going to be having that type of an engagement inside of the house, and not as a married person to say, and as a Christian, whether you're on the church board or off the church board, or as long as you name the name of Christ, that would be a no-no. So having the conversation would be very, very critical for the mental health survival of that child.
You're muted. You're muted, Nancy.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, Tyrone, we're looking at a situation where, the child has made an adult, essentially an adult observation. Does that child have a right to say something in your?
The child may not say something, but the behavior of the child may speak volume. The child may not be discussed because we might be looking at different age group here. But a child who is 7 years or 8 years will behave differently to a child who is 15 and 16. But a child who is 8 and 7 may, in action, speak, while the child who might be 16 and 17 and 15 may actually have a discussion with the parent. And I think that the parent should be that observant to see the change in the child's behavior, because children sometimes do not pretend. Sometimes just don't know how to pretend that everything is fine. And it's a situation where, if especially if it's a girl child, if it's a female, if the child says to the mother in terms of their comfort, then I think the mother should pay attention to it and not dismiss it totally. Because based on how things are going in the world in these times, we have to be so careful with the children that we raise, or our children. I don't even want to say especially girl children, because it goes both ways. It goes both ways. Because not necessarily not because it's a boy child means that the child could not be abused by the female partner that the male brings into the home. Because there are many ways of abuse. Sometimes the female partner might psychologically abuse the child, or sometimes even physically. So all of that needs to be considered. All that needs to be considered by the partner, whoever it is, whether the man or the woman. They must be considered when that decision is being made, and conversations need to be had in terms as to how to move forward in that situation. So the child has the right not to try to prevent the parent from doing, but to express their emotions. They must be given the freedom to express how they feel and how they think this thing could affect them, both whether it's physically, mentally, in school, whatever it is. Because again, being in the school situation, I've had conversation with a number of children. When you get down to the root of it, that is where the problem begins. And one of the issues that would arise, that will come up here, is the issue of attention. So when the child needs attention, because some children need attention, when the child needs attention now, the attention is shifted. So when another person comes into the picture, the child begins to feel that they'll be robbed of the attention that they were given. And so the child and the parent now needs to sit down and have a discussion as to, okay, I'm not going to neglect you. I'm not going to push you aside. You will still get the attention that you need and so on. And so once that conversation there takes place, at whatever age, I think there can be an amicable solution to the problem as they move forward. But I agree with Cleon 100%. Conversation need to take place, and also the parent need to be very, very observant as they move forward.
Exactly. If I can quickly jump in here, Nancy. I believe that parents these days, or parents nowadays, or parents in the whole, um, need to be cognizant about their how about the children and how they will react and what they do around their children. At this point in time, my kids are of utmost importance to me, you know. And if I should become a single parent, God forbid, and let's say I have my kids, well, obviously I'm a single parent. Um, if I am if I am not sure about the individual I probably um would like to see or whatever, I wouldn't introduce them to my kids. I wouldn't bring them around my kids. There's one. Secondly, I need to assess my children's state of mind, right? Because even though some parents may separate, but a child is still attached to the mother, and seeing someone else coming around daddy, you know what I mean? It can invoke feelings of anger, and the child starts to act out. Like as Tyrone say, you have to look at the behavior. Um, Boys especially, boys, when the father is not around and you see a strange man coming and coming after and so on, and you understand me, he tends to act out. I read this story once, or I think I saw it on TV, Facebook or something. Like this boy was doing so good in school. He was a straight A student, very good at school, but he always used to find himself in problems in terms of fighting and all of these things, you know. And when they got down to the bottom of it, his parents separated, but he was really attached to the father, but the father wasn't there. And so he was lashing out. So as a parent, for me, my children are very important. And if mommy and I can't work it out, I'm not gonna bring along a woman unless I'm absolutely certain, and unless they are kind of, you understand me, I need to address this state of mind first, and so it's not just about the child saying something, because sometimes the child may say it, and how they say it, we may not even like it, we may not be able to give them an answer, we may not be able to address the situation properly. They may say disrespectfully and all sorts of things, because
Right.
you understand, because we overlook it, and all we are concerned about our feelings and not theirs, you know so
Mhm.
I think we, as parents, we really need to be cognizant of that, and take those into
Uh,
consideration.
if I may jump in here, just one quick point here. What I'm getting here is that and I truly believe this: a parent should never, at no time whatsoever, force a child to accept their partner.
Okay.
That should not be forced.
Very
That
good.
should be that should be a natural process. That should be a natural process. Once you begin to force the issue, you will start creating a monster in the child.
Got you. Okay. Thank you, dear Tyrone and Randy. Cleon, we're going to shift a little to the adults, and we're talking about Christian values and predicaments we may find ourselves in from time to time. So, Cleon, Pastor B is well liked, well liked, and generally respected by the congregation. But you know a few unsavory things about Pastor B that should the congregation find out, you know it's going to cause some kind of consternation. How would you advise an adult to deal with such a situation?
By firstly dealing with the person based on biblical principle. If there's a issue with an individual, whether it be immoral or not, is firstly have the conversation with the individual, highlighting what they plan to do to bring corrective action towards their action. And if they choose not to, then I get Tyrone or Randy to come with me that are mature enough to understand and to deal with this situation, because a lot of times we find other people who are bandwagonists or just like the plank business and like the excitement and not deal with the issue. Because the reason why I say whether it be sexual or even immoral or anything like that sort,
Mm,
persons need to know that they can be redeemed. That is why Christ died, so that man can be redeemed. It's not that so that man can be doomed. And so, therefore, after having the conversation with you and not being able to get through to you and having two other persons to speak to you about it, then we will have to take it to the general public and say, well, we have tried to have this conversation with XYZ individual, and he or she has refused to acknowledge their misconduct. So therefore, we are asking you now to inform them that they will no longer be able to function in that capacity where they have been called to function in until they have went through the necessary steps of rehabilitation. Whatever form that denomination chooses, I can't say, but rehabilitation and helping the person to know that we care for you and we want the best for you. So rehabilitation is the way for you now while we pray for you.
okay, thank you, Cleon. So, Randy, will be your take on that? You know, you and only you realize that Pastor B is not this goody two shoes that everybody seems to be liking and embracing. Um, how as an adult should you address that?
Like Leon would have said, I know, of course, and I know that the pastor's action has would have um that effect on the church and the congregation and the people. I mean, of course, I can't sit by and not say anything. I will have to have a conversation with him. You understand? As it relates to his behavior. Um, I have seen it happen before, and well, I've heard about it before, so to speak. Let me put it away. I am thankful for the church that I'm in, not boasting or putting anybody else's church down or denomination down, but I am thankful for the church that I am a part of, because there is a systematic way in which we would tend to do things. All right, so and we have chain of commands that we can deal with these things at a different level. But me knowing by myself, me alone knowing, I will tend to I will talk with the person, of course. I may perhaps seek advice from a good friend, a good confidant who I know. If I can share it, let's say Tyrone, I can say Tyrone, this is a situation. I don't know how to approach it. It's between me and you. How
Hmm.
can you understand what I'm saying? I will
Right.
try to seek advice, because it's not um but I must, it's something we must address, because like I said, things like that can cause a lot of persons to walk away and all of these things. And if we know that this is going to have some sort of um reaction in the future, which most time it does, nothing goes um unnoticed for too long. All
Hmm.
right, so it must come out, and I mean, I will feel guilty to know that I know this thing has been going on and I haven't said anything. I'm basically condoning it. I mean, I will firstly have to have a conversation with him, respectfully, and everything, and let him know how I feel and what I know, and what he's
Right.
doing is not a secret. You know what I'm saying? If I don't have the courage enough, like I said, I will seek probably an elder, confidant, someone who's mature, as Cleon would have said, and we can tackle it together. We can have a discussion. You understand me? And we let him know that, look, you need to recuse yourself and ensure you get yourself in regular standing and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean, and get yourself in order, right? But at our
Right.
church level, we can move from the elder, we can move to the church board, and we can move to like the conference and all of these things. So we having
Mm-hmm.
resource personnel is available. That's why I'm thankful for. But if you ask me, basically I would have to say something to him I mean in private, of course, and have a discussion about it. And then perhaps if like Leon would have said, if there is no change, then we just have to go up the command, so to speak,
Of the
and the
chain of
relevant
command.
authorities who can make decisions to deal with such.
All right. Now, Tyrone, what happens when Cleon or Randy would have confronted Pastor B, and Pastor B denies what they're saying, and when they take it to the larger body accuses them of bad mouthing the pastor, so to speak. How do we as Christians address such a situation?
I just want to comment quickly on the previous question, and I'll comment on this one here. I remember once there was an issue with an individual found something red-handed from another individual that was basically against the nature of God. And the person came to me and asked what they should do. And I said to them, I said, go back and pray with the person. Go back to the person, tell them, and let's pray with them. And that's where the issue was killed, right there and then. So, in terms of going up the chain, because the more we go up the chain, the more persons become aware. And the more persons who become aware, the wider the spread of what you're trying to prevent from happening to the church. And I believe in prayer. And when we can sit down with a person and pray, sometimes even fast and pray with the individual and allow God to do his work. I normally say to people, I don't have to fix God's church for him. God didn't give me that command. He didn't give me that mandate. And nobody can fix God's church. All that we're doing when we talk about putting people out of church is basically clean our books to make the church look nice. But God can fix and God will fix his church the way he decides to fix his church. The way he fixed Solomon, he'll decide to fix Pastor B the same way. I think sometimes as Christians, we just need to stand back, pray, and just allow God to do what he has to do. And some of us, we go ahead of God and we try to fix people and we do more damage than good. Now, to the question that you asked, if Pastor B denies, it ends there for me. I don't have to, I don't think I should go and ask somebody or go to other people. If I confront you and I have the facts here, and based on the facts that I have, this thing is true, and you deny it, then I have to pray for you. And that's it. So I don't
Right.
have to, I don't think I should go further to try to bring in other people to convince you that you're guilty. I I am not in a position to make you feel guilty. It is the Holy Spirit's conviction that makes somebody feel guilty. So if I come to you with the facts and I present the facts and you deny it, then I need to pray for you and end the matter right there. Because it doesn't matter who else come with the fact. The person is gonna still the person is gonna still deny it. every step of the way, and of reconciliation, when we would have done our part in confronting, in having a conversation, that is our part. And that's all God asks us to do. Do our part, encouraging people, confronting them, not condemning them, and all the rest of it. After that part now, that's our responsibility. That's all it is. It is the
Yeah,
spirit's responsibility and the listener, the listener's responsibility now. It is to listen, embrace, to accept it is true or not, to accept, and to make an intentional decision, a conscious effort to move forward and to change. That's not my role. My role is to speak with you. That's my role.
Okay.
and yeah, quickly if I can say, and Tyron, this confrontation, it is not a hostile confrontation, so to speak. You're not. I mean, you're addressing you're talking to the pastor with the intention of helping him to change. All right, because of course his action would have catastrophic consequences to the church and so on. So it is not that you and I like how you would have put it in the latter part where you talk about not to condemn and to put down and so on, but you're addressing the situation. Remember, you have knowledge, you know. You understand me? You know, so you politely saying in an effort to to bring him to a self realization. You're not convicting him, but you tell, look, Pastor, I know this personally. You understand me? It's not what you do, it's how you do what you do. I can remember once there was a girl, I'm gonna call name or anything. There was a girl and a pastor. The girl got pregnant in church, and of course with those things in my church, um if you holding position, you're censored and whatever, you're not put out of the church. You know what I mean? And the girl is still in church today. She's still active and rebaptized and everything and so on. And she's very much active. And one of the things she said that caused her to still be in the church is how the pastor approached her. He went and he visited her, you know what I mean? And he politely brought up the situation. And then he didn't tell her, he asked her, he said, man, look, this is the situation. What you think I should do or what you think should be done in this situation, you know? And she started to say, man, well, I know this is wrong. This is according to the principles and so on of God. It's not how we really it should be. And you know what I mean? And she actually, because she knew, you understand me? And instead of him saying, well, look, you have to step down from your position and you got to do this and you have to do that. When he asked her what you think or what you believe should be done, and she was laying it out. She gracefully gave up her position and all of these things. She kept coming to church. He prayed with her and all of these things. And through the pregnancy, the baby, now she's in the church, the daughter's in the church. You understand what I'm saying? Is how you do
So
what
Randy,
you want to do. Uh-huh.
what if her response was she should still continue?
If what?
If her response to the question was she still feel that
She says she shall
that
continue.
yeah,
Well,
she has a message for the young people that she should still continue.
yes, well then politely again, I would say that, well, yes, I believe you still have a message to the young people. You still can be a witness. You still can get to the position, but in your current state, I will advise you not to. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's not a message you will want to send to the young people. I
What
mean,
current
you have,
state?
pardon?
What current state?
Well, actually, she got pregnant out of wedlock.
At what point was she forgiven?
Pardon?
At what point was she forgiven?
I don't know, bro. I'm
By
not God.
God.
I don't know.
By God.
I don't know. But the point is, according to the
Okay.
standards, right? Public sins declare public demonstration and answer, but you're not putting them out of the church. Public demonstration of repentance and all of these things. That's a whole different topic by itself. But the point
Yeah,
I'm trying to
definitely.
bring, but the point I'm trying to bring over to you is that I'm trying to say is not what you do, is how you do what you do. You understand what I'm saying? And so even in trying to help somebody, we need to be tactful in going about doing that. And that's the point I want to make, right? So it's not about confronting somebody, but it's doing it in love, doing it in a way that you can help the individual rather than push the individual farther away or down. You understand me? Or to pass judgments and condemnation, because we are not God, and there's none of us that really that can say that we're unblemished or we're blameless or we have never sinned. And the same level or the same methods of forgiveness and reaching out and politeness and care and all of these things. I have had such happen to me before. I've made mistakes and so, but and I had a good friend came and we talked and we prayed and all of these things, and I felt so good about myself. You understand what I'm saying? So I mean, is that is what is not what you do, but how you do what you want to do, how you do it, and that's the point I'm making, Tyrone. We can probably have the other
Yeah.
conversation
If I may say something here,
some other
and
time.
something quickly here, and one of the persons who were on the show here spoke about double standard, and this is one of the reasons why young people leave church, because one person is known to be a fornicator, but not pregnant, and is still active. This other individual who's not a known fornicator gets pregnant, and she's asked to step down. Aren't both of those public sins? Are they all publicly known? So how do we balance that? And that's why a few young people might leave the church, because there seems to be a double standard in dealing with the same situation. One, we see the effects, that's pregnancy. The other one, we don't see the effects, but both of them are publicly known.
Um,
Yeah,
uh,
That's
um,
for another
that's a
discussion.
very big point there, Tyrone.
yeah,
That
no, no, no. I mean, but it's a big point indeed. But then one of it can only lend so much of speculation. You understand me? When it comes to promiscuity, um, we can only speculate. You can say that you can see me in a compromising position. You can see me going in by this person every night, but you cannot definitely determine that I am doing what you think I am doing. With pregnancy, is a different whole ball game altogether. It's out there. It
So
might be
point
absurd.
A,
It might be absurd not to think that I'm going in every night and ain't doing nothing, but still a speculating whenever done because I'm not 100% sure.
In other
Not a
words,
discussion.
Randy, one might be a lifestyle, and the other might just be a one instance, a one time something. So the person
Hmm.
who gets pregnant can only be
Tyron,
a one time something, and the
I
other one,
think
the other one who is constantly going, that people know, the person accept it, the person acknowledge that they do it, and they do it very often. It's acknowledged, they know it, and everybody
No,
knows.
no. Well,
I'm
you
just
acknowledge it. No,
guys,
well, you
I
acknowledging means that the same principle should be meted out to you.
but they don't do it.
If
Anyway,
if it is
that's
if
another story.
if it is publicly known both way, I'm talking about certain as how pregnancy is certain, then I think the measure should be this should be
should be the
same.
same.
Yes.
But
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Cleo.
most times, because one doesn't bear a fruit, a tangible fruit that is evident before our eyes, that one is most of the times taken with an iron fist, other than the one where
Exactly.
someone may be found out or like going in every night and you're thinking that is what it is. But because the fruit is now developing,
Yes.
we tend to
Exactly.
treat the situation differently. But that's why I said it didn't matter if it was a sexual or anything that is immoral or degrading that the person would have been involved in, is to show the person love and to let them know that rehabilitation is the way. Jesus came so that you can be redeemed, and I am not Jesus to condemn you, so therefore you will be redeemed.
Okay. Cleon, we'll stay with you and we close off on this question because earlier Tyrone had said, if when he approached Pastor B denies everything, it finishes there for him, with regard to that particular situation. Do you agree with that approach?
If the person denies,
The person said no, it's not true. But you know to be true, and you approach them, in a nice manner, you try to reach out to them, and they say, to clear, and I don't know what you're talking about.
well, then I would have to have another witness. Because how did I know
Hmm.
for it to be proven to be true? So, like Jesus, when the people brought the woman to him who was caught in the act of adultery, my question at that time was, how did they know? Were they there? Or probably one of the men, somebody other caught her, whole scenario. So for me to, I would not stop even though the person would have said, no, I don't know what nonsense you're talking about. Don't mix me up. If the person who would have reached out to me say that this is what transpired between X, Y, and Z, then I am going to say, you know what? The reason why I'm approaching you is because X would have reached out to me and said that they would like for you to desist from this because it is not going down well with them. And therefore, if you're going to say to me no, then you are calling X a liar. And therefore, I will have the conversation with both parties. Because when you're the the victim is in the presence of the accuser, most times they don't want to have that conversation unless they're really bold-faced and have no remorse of what they would have done based on what I would have done in terms of working with children in different situations in different countries. They would not want to sit in the same room with the person to acknowledge their wrong. So therefore, if it comes to the point that I have to have the individual to confront you about your behavior, then that will be it. And if you refuse to accept it, then I will let it be known to the other two mature persons that I engage. I would have had the conversation with the person who has been affected by this or who continues to be affected by the actions of Tom. And in the presence of the other person, he just clearly did not want to accept, or she clearly did not want to accept the responsibility. So therefore, I believe we will have to find another way to help this person, not to bring the person down, but to help this person understand, yes, it is okay. You're human. You made a mistake. If it was a mistake, and if it is not a mistake, but it's a habit, then it needs to be broken.
Okay, thank you so much for that, guys. This is the Georgetown Tea House. We're coming close to the end of a very interesting discussion, very insightful. Many great points were made this evening. And if we, there was another question, but I think this one I'm gonna leave it for another I'm gonna leave it for another podcast. Now, Randy, do you have any closing remarks that you wanna, any points that you may not have been able to bring out earlier?
Um, I really just to endorse what I would have said before, and what some of the points that the guys and I would have shared in common. Um,
Hmm.
in terms of, I'm going to start from the inception. In terms of our children, um, we need to be very mindful and careful about their feelings. All right. We need to have regular room for open and mature conversation with our kids.
Hmm.
They're exposed. They are far ahead compared to when we were kids. And so I think the approach that was used back then needs to be readjusted,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that we so that we can meet our kids, and we can be able to guide them in the proper direction. As it relates to the last scenario, um, and the question you asked, Cleon, if Tyron's approach is the right approach. If I'm at a point where the individual is denying it, the two of us alone are together, and I say to you, this is what I know, all right, and we're talking about it, and you're vehemently denying it. Um, the Bible says, "Be sure your sin will find you out." You know what I mean? Your sins will find you out. I don't believe I can go further, or I wouldn't want to escalate the situation by
Mm-hmm.
but I may consider Cleon's position in telling somebody else and leave it up to them to see what they can do.
Right.
But for me, I will withdraw myself. But I would just want somebody else to know that, look, I know, or I knew about it, and I
Mm-hmm.
would have warned him about it, and this is he denied it. So in the event of perhaps this big blow up after, you know what I mean? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
but right, but I'm not the one who's going to push wood to the fire to go on to find and prove and
Mm-hmm.
to go back
Right.
and
Right.
forth with the individual who was denying it. You know what I mean? I
Right. Right.
wouldn't be caught in that situation. So basically, yeah, those are my final thoughts on the
All right.
issues that we would have discussed.
We want to close out with a phrase that came out of Tyrone's and Tyrone used the phrase church burnout, and I find it, it set me thinking. Um, Quickly, Tyrone, in a sentence or two, and another time we will go deep into this. What do you think can lead to church burnout? Are we talking here about kids or adults? What can lead to church burnout?
A number of things. When members begin to feel overwhelmed with a church situation, they can have a church burnout. I remember I sat in the church for an entire year, and I observed members come to church just for form. You can observe they were mentally tired of church. They were emotionally drained of what was happening
Mhm.
in the church or with the church. So different situations can cause people to burn out differently. People can get mentally tired of church. They can get so spiritually exhausted that they prefer to basically stay away from church. The environment can be
Mhm.
so toxic that it could drain, if you're not careful, it could drain you emotionally. Yes, church environment can get that toxic that it can drain you emotionally. It can drain you, and if you're not careful enough, if you don't withdraw yourself for maybe a 6 months or a few months to basically keep your balance,
Mhm.
keep your balance within this the centrality of spirit of God, you can be burnt out with church activities. Another thing can cause church burnt out is when you keep going 24/7 with just church activities. So from one into the next, from one into the other, and before you know it, your body becomes physically drained, and that also can cause church burnout. But one of the major factors that cause church burnout is emotional stress within the church environment. Here's something, brother Nancy. When you're in a church environment where you have church divided, split down the middle,
Mhm.
and every Sabbath, every Sunday you go to church, there is this antagonism with these two groups. There's a hatred that is being felt within the church, it can sap your spiritual energy if you are not careful. And this is what
Right.
some people get tired. Some people will basically get tired of. And so that's what I mean when I say church burnout. And finally,
Right.
as I close here quickly,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I researched and read about from this Barna group or research group that basically do research on Christianity and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book You Lost Me, Why Young People Leave Church. What is very interesting is that one of the major factors is because young people are not given the chance to express their true feeling. I remember a young person asked me a question. Is it possible, is it right for me to dress like a Muslim, live like a Hindu, and be a Christian based on the person's reading and the love that flows from the Hindu religion, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and the modesty in the person's mind of the Muslim dress, and the Christianity, Christ Jesus. The question the child asked, can you be all three of these in one? I said to the person, go and ask the elder.
Okay.
The elder would never
All right.
answer the question. So there is that disconnect between young people expressing how they feel. A young person cannot express that, you know what? Right now I'm feeling Christianity doesn't make sense. You go tell your elder that, they will say you have a demon.
All right. We're going to look deeper at that subject. Cleon, before you stepped out, I know you may have been listening, but earlier in our conversation, Tyrone coined the phrase church burnout. And then later he speaks about spiritual exhaustion. Now, someone, listening, would think, should a Christian ever experience something like that, spiritual exhaustion? Um, in a line or two, Cleon, what do you think can lead to church burnout? This is something we're going to examine in another podcast in depth.
Not being honest with yourself to delegate responsibility to other people and just feeling that you were tasked with the title elder or whatever phrase you use within your denomination, that because you are the person, it means that you should be doing all, failing to recognize that Jesus, who could have done everything himself, had 12 disciples and delegated responsibility to them by sending them out two by two. Before he did so, he instructed them on what they should be doing. And so that is what we should be doing as individuals within the church. Having persons who are sitting under us and are going to be imparted with the necessary information so that they can be able to help other people, and everyone doesn't need to come running to us, because we will not be here forever. Or you'll be dead and somebody will bury you like normal.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Cleon, Randy, Tyrone. Thank you for sitting in the seat, dealing with the questions. Thank you, Samantha, Malika, Petal, all the other folks who joined us in the chat. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for staying on board. And please do join us next next week, same time, for another episode of Georgetown Tea House. Good night, be well,
Good
and
night. Good
thanks
night,
again.
everybody.
God bless you.